Good morning. This morning I'm going to do a demonstration video on how to install the Jomy retractable ladder. This is the ladder here, and it operates really nicely and fluidly, and it actually installs fairly quickly, and I hope this video will help speed that all along. So the base sits right down on the ground or on a slab, whatever you may have. We haven't poured one yet, which is why it's sitting on that block of wood. I've already set up the brackets up the wall, and what I did is I got a laser and I plumbed the line up, and what you want is at about 10 inches or so off of the edge of the window to the center of the bracket. And then you want them spaced out not more than about 5 feet apart, and at the very top you want it to be within about 6 to 12 inches of the top. And ideally you want a maximum distance of 30 inches off the ground to your first bracket, but we couldn't have that here because of the way the house is set up. So once the brackets are in, you attach these fasteners right here on one side of all the brackets all the way up. You can see they each have a fastener. Then one section at a time, you click the ladder into the slot, twist it back towards the house, and that will lock it in place. So here's what the bracket looks at the other side, and it's important to note that at this point we're only finger tightening the screws that go into these plates. So now that we got the other side attached, we hook this side in the same way, slide this down into place, line it up so the holes are aligned, and then we attach 2 screws through here into the bracket, and again we'll put these 2 in, and then we'll just do them hand tight for now, and that is just on the bottom section. Now at the top of the lower section you'll see there's a 2 screws and a hole. That middle hole had a screw in it which I took out, and what that does is it allows this part to lift up and out of the slot, and by doing that, when you lift that up and out, that is what will allow the section of the ladder to fold out and in place. That serves as a lock that keeps the ladder engaged. But then when you lift that, like I say, the whole ladder will fold out away from the house. So again, you pull this piece up and out, you remove that middle screw that was right in here, you pull this piece up and out, and that will allow the ladder section to gently and easily fold out and down. So the ladder is now folded out and you are ready for the next step. I've now attached the handle onto the second section. The handles are located in certain spots that are designated by holes that have been pre-drilled into the side of the box. They're about every 16 or 18 inches or so. Now the next step, as I say, is to put in the handles, and what you want to do is figure out exactly where the handles want to go. So you can have one on the ground, although that makes it accessible to anybody that might want to get into your house. So more typical is to have one outside of each means of egress. So what you have to do is envision that you are at a window,
needing to get out of the house in the event of a fire, where is a comfortable place to reach and grab the handle. Measure accordingly off of the ground onto the sections of the ladder, and that will tell you where to set your bracket for the handles.
And in a second I will show you how to put the handle together, because it's a little bit tricky. But right now we're going to take this outside and lower it down onto the section that we put up earlier this morning.
So a very important part of the equation is where the two sections of the ladder come together. There's a plate similar to this one, that is this one, that's mounted up here. You need to loosen the two nuts here, take the plate off, take these two nuts off, and move the plate down so that it's attached at 2 points here and 2 points there. And that's what will allow the release mechanism, once activated from the handle up above, that's what will allow both sections of the ladder to operate as one piece and move together to lower down, like so. Once the ladder is all attached and has been lowered, there are two screws down below here which tie this section and this section together. There are these screws here, these 4 screws, 2 here, one I still need to put in, and one I need to put in over here that attach this upper and lower section. And then the same is true here. And that's what holds the top and the bottom sections together and makes it so strong it'll feel like you're gliding down a carpeted staircase. So I've got the brackets attached. There's 2 brackets per section, and then at the bottom there's one bracket that's usually held up about 30 inches off the ground. Because of the situation here, I can't do that, but that's generally the idea. I set a laser and snapped a chalk line up the wall, installed the top bracket and the lower bracket, tightened the bolts so that they were set in place, and then moved up the line and set the middle brackets accordingly and tightened those down as well.
One of the most important steps in this process is the handle installation. There are a set of instructions, although I needed to download these from the manufacturer. They didn't come included. So the way that you do that is on the Jomy ladder. You'll notice that there are a series of holes about every 12 inches apart. And so what you do is you pick the location that is the most ideal to have the handle, and that is where you will place it, and the center of it is located on this hole, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So one of the most important things in the process is being able to open and close the ladder in order to operate on it. What they recommend is cutting a 10.5-inch block of wood in which to hold it open. I actually find that's a little bit small. I've been cutting mine about 10 and 15/16. And it's going to be a little hard to show it here. Let me see what I can do. That's not going to work. But get the block of wood, insert it between the rungs of the ladder, it's got to be pretty tight or the ladder will continue to move, and that will lock the ladder into the open position. Then we go to the hole that we determine is the right one, set this up over the hole. That screw goes right down through this hole, tighten it up, and that will serve as a template. You'll drill 3 1/4-inch holes. After you have drilled the 3 1/4-inch holes,
Loosen the screw, remove the template, and in the center hole, the one that the screw went through, drill a 1/2 inch hole in that location.
Next, remove the template and expand only the center hole to 1/2 inch. After enlarging the center hole to 1/2 inch, set the ladder on its side so that you can access this inner rail to install the handle. I'll often hold off on installing the screw till last because I find if I do it early in the process, it gets in the way of tightening this piece right here. So hold off on that for a bit. Hold off on installing this. The next step is to mount the front shaft retainer, this piece right here, put it over the holes and use this bracket, and that goes on the inside of the ladder and lines up with the holes, which you then attach with 2 screws. One thing to keep in mind is if the holes do not align, reverse the rail, the piece that we put underneath here, and then the holes will line up. The next step is to snap the back shaft retainer into the slot, and it's important that this hole line up with this piece right here, because ultimately the handle will come through here and rest in here. So it's got to be directly opposite. Next, we tamp the tack rail onto the slide with the tongue, this portion towards the top of the ladder. Next, we attach the handle to the release shaft by driving this slotted pin through here, which will go through here and hold that in place. Next, we insert the handle a bit, and then we install this piece, the cam, with the set screw up and the lobe forward, like so. Next, slip on the ejector, like so. This part facing the top of the ladder. And the last part is to put the spacer in there and then push this part all the way through and lock it in there. The last step in the handle process is to tighten this Allen wrench right here, and I find that it's often easier to put this in last or remove it now in order to tighten that screw properly. The last step will be to tighten these 2 bolts on the front shaft retainer. We're now nearing the end, and so one of the things we want to do is take off these 2 screws on this, lift off this bracket. This will then sit, we'll move it down, it'll sit here, and then join with the lower section that we are going to attach this to, and that will tie the upper section here with the lower section. So the last step is going to be to join the top section with the middle section. So again, we've taken out all the screws that are going to be in our way. We've removed the 2 nuts there, and those sections will all join up, so it'll slide down. The top section will slide down on there and then lock into those brackets. Once the 2 sections have been joined together, that plate goes back on and those 4 screws are attached. And then over here, these screws are, those 2 that are missing are put through. And then over here, those 2 right there are reattached, and the same will happen out there on the end. And it will all be joined in. And also this bracket is put in and cinched down, which will keep the ladder from wanting to fall away from the house. One of the last things we're going to do is attach the tension clip from here to here, which will allow the ladder to hold down when you hit the release handles. So the last step is you tighten up all the bolts, make sure all the connections are good, attach the bolts on the outside of the house at the brackets so that it's equidistant off the house. And then our last thing we do is just pull the handle down to double check that everything works. There should be a handle located just outside each window. So we'll do a test, and with any luck, the ladder will swing out and down, and it's ready to go. Hopefully you won't ever need to use it, but if you do, you know that you can count on the Jomy ladder to get you safely down. Hope you've learned something from this instructional video. Good luck and good building.